Hi everyone, it is April. I am here to chat with you about the longest books that I have read. Oh my goodness. Some of them I've loved, some of them not so much. So let's dive into it. So the first of my top 10 longest books ever is Alias Grace by Margaret Atwood. This is like 630 something pages, 636 pages. I adored this book. Oh my goodness. This is historical fiction and we follow a woman named Grace Marks, I think her last name is. Now, we meet her after she has been convicted of having killed her employer and her employer's mistress. She's in prison, but she does work at this house during the day, working as kind of like a maid. Now we also follow a doctor who comes to visit her and tries to get her to open up about what happened, because Grace has always maintained her innocence, but he needs to know, and he starts to care for her. It's very strange, but also really good, and it's based on a true story. That always sucks me in. It's Canadian. It's a Canadian murder story. I mean, what more could you ask for? Margaret Atwood. That's what more you can ask for. No need, because here we go. You've got Alias Grace. It was wonderful. I so highly recommend this one. Next up is Night Film. I listened to this on audio and I must say I regret that, because this is filled with the coolest stuff. Like, I think I will reread this because it's like mixed media. And this is a thriller about a young woman who is found dead. She is the daughter of a notorious horror film director. Now, his films are so twisted and strange that they are kind of banned. There is a huge underground following, but we follow a journalist who thinks that this horror director actually had something to do with the daughter's death, and he investigates. And that's what the whole thing is about. I did really enjoy this. I haven't read anything else by her yet, but I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. Next is The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. This was like 640 pages. Oh, I should mention, Night Film was also 640 pages. The Forgotten Garden is about a little girl who I believe is discovered on a ship. And she's taken in, but no one knows where she came from. And you dive into where she came from and follow these two women who led her to that ship in the end. I didn't like this at all. This, to me, didn't have very good representation of infertility. There is this theme in books of people writing stories about infertile women being villains and being so desperate that they'll like kidnap other kids. And as someone who went through infertility, we had IVF to have Nora. I hated this book. It felt like Kate Morton had no idea what she was talking about. If I'm being honest, I think Kate Morton has like 3 or 4 kids. Like, most likely she didn't have a hard time conceiving. It didn't feel like she knew what she was talking about. And I didn't like it, but a lot of other people do. So there's that. Okay, next, oh my God, is Moby Dick. This was so hard to read. I read this from my American literature class at Queen's and it was so long. It's so long. It's not even the longest book. It's like 654 pages, but it's like 654 pages about rope. This is about a ship that's trying to find the white whale. They are a whaling ship, and it was very boring. I couldn't stand this book. I know it's a classic, but it was so not for me at all. I just wanted all of the whales to be saved. I work at a wildlife organization, so this is like no. Maybe this led me to work at my current job. I wonder. In any case, didn't like Moby Dick at all. But I read it. I have it under my belt. Oh, and now we're moving into a lot of Karen Slaughter. Prepare yourself. So next I want to share with you pieces of her. This was 656 pages, and Pieces of Her is about a mother and a daughter, very well fleshed out characters, and they are at a mall, and this man takes out a gun and he starts shooting. The mother actually rushes out and like basically kicks his butt, takes the gun away from him, and her daughter is just staring, like going, well, who are you? Like, this is not the mom that I was raised by. How do you have these skills? And you find out why. You find out her backstory. I enjoyed this. This is like hit or miss for a lot of people. This might be a lot of people's least favorite Karen Slaughter's, but I enjoyed it. I thought it was a fun ride. Next is The Good Daughter, also by Karen Slaughter. This made me cry. I think this is also 656 pages. I don't know how she does that. That's pretty impressive. So this follows a family. The daughters in this family, when they're teenagers, watch their mother being brutally murdered in front of their eyes. And it affects them in different ways. One of the daughters leaves home and tries to just move on with her life. The other daughter stays and ends up working, I think, as a lawyer with their father. But tragedy and violence strikes again in this hometown. And so our main character, who has moved away, she comes back, and it's about their dynamics. I really enjoyed this. It is a thriller, but it's also a bit contemporary. It's very much a family story. So it does move a little slower, but I thought it was worth it, and I loved these characters so much. Karen Slaughter writes amazing characters that you learn to care about, so much so that you might cry for them and about them. Okay, next, another Karen Slaughter. I promise this is the last Karen Slaughter. This is Pretty Girls by Karen Slaughter. This is probably her most well-known. It is so dark. Oh my goodness. Do not pick this up if you have a weak stomach. This is about a woman whose husband dies very suddenly. She is devastated. His business partner calls and says, I need this file off of his computer. Can you go and get that for me, please? And so she goes on his computer trying to find it, and she stumbles on something else instead. And she stumbles on this video footage of women being tortured. And she's going, is this like fake? Is this real? Why does my husband have this on his computer? And she and her sister dive in. So good. Oh my gosh. I should reread that one at some point. Pretty Girls was 688 pages. Moving right along, we have Stalin's Daughter. This is a nonfiction book that was 741 pages. And Stalin's Daughter is about Stalin's daughter. I didn't even know he had a daughter, and apparently most of the world didn't know that he had a daughter. She had quite a life and was also quite a strange woman. But we meet her, and she tells the story of her childhood, which was, as you can imagine, terrifying, because Stalin would have people in her life killed off, like for no reason. So some of the people that she adored in her life, even including her mother, were murdered and just suddenly gone. And Stalin was just so abusive towards her. And she, I think she goes to the American embassy asking for protection. She wants to move to America and she wants protection. And at this point, like, no one knew that Stalin even had a daughter. And it follows what the American government does, how she reacts. I think it was America, if I'm not mistaken. It's been a hot second since I read it. It was interesting. I listened to it on audio. I will say you feel for her, but as she gets older, she's a bit strange and she's not always the most thoughtful person. That's all I'll say. Number 9, we've got It by Stephen King. This was 1,116 pages. Oh my God, this was so long. This follows a group of kids in the summer in the 80s, and they have to fight evil, essentially. Then it also follows them years later, I think 27 years later, something along those lines. They have to go back to their hometown and fight evil all over again. I loved the dynamics between the kids a lot of the time, but I will say this was so long, like unnecessarily long. He went on tangents in here. It felt like, what are you doing, Stephen? Like, this story has nothing to do with the main story. He'd just go on these tangents that drove me nuts. There's a scene here that made me, it kind of ruined the book. If you've read it, you know what that scene is. I hated that scene and it really screwed everything up to me. I don't think this is where I'd start with Stephen King. That is where I started with Stephen King and I can't believe it. Okay, the longest book I've ever read. Okay, I feel like I'm kind of cheating a little bit because it is 3 books in one, but it's The Lord of the Rings. This is 1,216 pages. I enjoyed this. The way that I read this was, well, I read it many years ago when the movies were coming out. So I would read part of the book, so like The Fellowship of the Rings. I would read that and then go and see the movie and then wait a while and then read the second book, The Two Towers, or the second part, and then go and see The Two Towers. And I really enjoyed that. I really cared so much about the characters. Sam became like one of my favorite characters of all time. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It's very long, lots of battle scenes, lots of like his history in it, for sure. I think Tolkien even created a language, like an Elvish language for this book, which is quite a feat. I did enjoy it though, for sure. So those are all of the very, very, very long books that I have read in my life. I get very intimidated by long books, but you know, sometimes it works out, sometimes you regret reading it. You just never know. I hope that you guys are doing really, really well, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will talk with you soon. Bye, everybody.